Yeah. Was there one of those early jobs when it all kind of came together for you, or that you saw out in the wild and you're like, oh, this is great.
Uh, uh, you remember when Michael Jordan left basketball and then he announced he was coming back?
Yep.
Well, there was a spot that I worked on that it was like he was running up this mountainside to a guru.
Michael. Michael told them to find what you desire requires a great effort.
It was just announcing. It was just in time
I,
with him
I have
coming back.
I have weird vestigial memories of this. Yeah.
So getting a chance to work on that, just sort of like, wow, working.
And this was in Chicago
this is in Chicago, right?
to work on a spot
On
with
a-
Michael Jordan, and
right.
it was
It
yeah.
was also, yeah. I guess it's 95. So it just
Mhm.
as they're getting ready to embark on their next three-peat.
You look thirsty. Gatorade?
Welcome to Propellant Minnesota. I'm Matt Osterman, your host. Our guest today is Oscar Oboza. For film and TV outsiders, his role as a colorist might seem mysterious, but for those of us working inside the industry, the kind of work he and other colorists do is both necessary and a bit magical. We'll dive into exactly what a colorist does and why it's so important, and also talk about some of his favorite projects over the years, which, if you've watched any commercials on the TV in the last 20 years, I guarantee that you've seen some of his work. Oscar is both an artist and a technician, and truly one of the sweetest guys around. I learned a ton during our conversation, and I'm sure you will too. All right, we're going to start off with a hard one.
Okay.
What is color grading?
Oh, okay, yeah. How about just finding balance between shots in whatever that motion piece is, but basically goes beyond that. It's measuring the amount of contrast in a scene that is pleasing. It's taking into account the different cameras that might have been used and making that all play nice together in one cohesive piece. It's understanding what the story is trying to tell and making the color feel like it belongs together, that it's not mismatch. So I think there's a lot of both technical and artistic endeavors that go into color grading.
Yeah, is there a difference between color grading, color correction, and color timing?
Yes, timing, of course, I think harkens back to the more chemical process that we would have at the lab. Unfortunately, we don't have our esteemed Delden labs anymore, but I'm trying to remember, I think the last film job I worked on was 2008 or 2010, and from then on, it's been pretty much all digital acquisition at this point. Color correction, as it probably sounds, is more like just making a shot look right, and color grading is more the artistic endeavor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the industry, from my perspective, people still use those kind of interchangeably.
Oh, sure.
You know.
People still say telecine
Oh, right.
as a form of color, or working with a colorist. So
Yeah. Yeah. Funny. Yeah. This your industry has both changed a lot and kind of still the same thing, right?
right. I remember when we were switching from film to digital acquisition that, where's color grading going to be, as these new cameras are supposedly going to just capture everything perfectly, and there won't be that need to do any color grading. And luckily, I guess, that while these images do look great from the camera, but there's still making these images look unique for whatever the filmmaker wants their piece to feel like. And a shoot day between day 1 to day 3 is still not going to be the exact same conditions. So a lot of things have to be balanced out, and that's where a colorist will be happy to help out.
Yeah. I mean, color theory really hasn't changed for the last
No,
100
in
years.
fact, I'm just seeing more color scientists become more part of the conversation when I look at different videos and understanding the new tools that are coming around. They're definitely much more prevalent in these discussions and the development of the different tools. We're seeing that more and more.
Yeah, well, it's almost like cameras now are so powerful and sensitive, and they're all shooting log flat images that, it just opens up the palette for you, I would assume.
Right. And you want your tools, like my color grading system, to continue to develop it, particularly in what I guess we would call look development, which is, at least in the terms of how Filmlight, the company that makes Baselight, the system I work on, they call it like, it's not color grading, but it's more like thinking of it as creating a new film stock.
Yeah.
Because you need that look development to be equal across different cameras. It's not just one camera. It's not like a LUT specific for that camera. You're trying to, because like if you use a LUT from your Alexa and then try to bring it into red, of course it's not, you can work with it a little bit, but of course it's optimized for that camera.
Devoid of information. Like if you look at the monitor on set, it's like there's a gray wash or a white wash over it,
Right.
and it looks like crud, right?
Right.
Why are people shooting that way now?
It allows basically you're getting the full information off of the camera. It's no different from getting a log image off of a digital still, and you bring it into Photoshop, and you have all that extra information to shape the picture to the way you please.
So like maybe like your iPhone or a consumer level camera will bake that information into the image,
Right.
And it's harder to move it around.
Right.
The colors, you can't like
if
make
the sky's
blue.
blown out, if you want to bring some detail back, without that extra amount of information up there, it's lost. Or if the shadows are a little crunchy, too dark, and you want to open those up a little bit. All that extra information is so important with regards to how we want our images to look. And the more information you have, the better picture that you can create.
So they're like independent voters almost, and you can pull them to the
Right.
to the red or the blue or whatever you need
Exactly.
to do.
And then there are some of those simple tools that we have in our camera are pretty effective in terms of like just shaping a pretty fun look. If you're doing something for Instagram that you want it to look cool, and it just make it look just that much different than something else that you posted before or that somebody else has posted from the same event, or it's creating that uniqueness.
Are you having to work at a lot of stuff with the vertical framing now?
It just becomes part of the overall project. A lot of times I'll see the 16:9, the 1:1, the 9:16. They're using the same shots because the DP is being told that
Frame it for everything.
Right, exactly. And of course that's driving them crazy, but it's our world now. I was just at the gas station, and I saw a spot that I was working on playing off of the monitor
gas
on
station.
the gas station monitor. It's like,
Were you
well,
like-
it looks good at least. I mean, it's
Yeah. Were you like life dream, get a spot on a
at the
gas
Speedway.
station?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was there. So
Well, you've made it, man.
all right, well,
Congrats.
thank you.
Did they give you a discount on your gas or anything? You're like, you go and say, hey, I did that thing over there.
There's unfortunately nobody around to boast.
Well, everybody that's listening can now recognize you for
Thank you.
your work on that Speedway spot.
It was a local production for lottery, but but it was at the Speedway. So there you go.
Hey, it's out in the world.
That's right.
Speaking of all those deliverables, what are some of the common challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis?
I think probably the most common is just different camera formats, or at least mixed formats, where I need to. You might have the A camera, it might be that beautiful Sony Venice or Alexa 35, and then your iPhone B-roll footage or a drone, or it's and then just making it again play nicely together, just so that when the viewer is seeing it, that it just feels seamless that they all came from one same similar source. And the picture's not jumping around and kind of pulling the viewer away from the what you're trying to immerse them in.
Yeah, I would assume 90% of people probably don't know, what you do exactly.
My parents never knew what I did.
Yeah. We'll keep it a mystery, maybe, I guess.
The black magic of color grading.
Right. Maybe paint a picture for us, like in terms of, what does your setup look like? You walk into your room,
Mm-hmm.
and what does that look like? Like, kind of give us a little insight.
Sure. I joke that I have this huge panel in front of me that this panel is connected to my software, but it makes me kind of look like Mr. Sulu and the Enterprise. But it's like my instrument that allows me to create color, and it's no different than a musical instrument that somebody chooses. This brand of saxophone compared to another one. It's just what they feel like they make the best music. And so this panel is just part of I have this God monitor that I use. It's a Sony that can be obviously calibrated. I have a couple of monitors for scopes and the GUI or the display from the software. And then my clients will be sitting off to the side where I can view them this way. It used to be traditionally that people would sit behind me and then there'd only be one monitor. And I like the more collaborative setup now where they're looking at a OLED monitor, which is a monitor that more people have at home compared to the Sony that I have in front of me. And there's a cost difference too, but that's, I want to make sure that as I watch colors and they are true to what my scopes are showing on screen, and that so I feel confident. And you have that kind of empirical evidence that this is the right color now. And of course, the OLED is also a calibrated monitor. So they're different technologies, but at the same time, it's very close so that I know that what they're seeing is at least true to what I'm seeing in front of me. Old setups I used to have a Sega Genesis in my room just to keep people occupied. But nowadays, everybody has their phone or their laptops, and more often than not, they're doing 3 or 4 different things besides the color grading session. So it's just
because they're in post and
right.
dealing with sound and visual effects.
All is happening all at once, it seems like, and that's part of our world. But at least in the room, it's just I always say it's like they're rounding third base, and this is like they're getting close to the finish line. And everybody should feel relaxed, or at least like they've done the hard legwork with the getting approvals through edit, and now they're here and we're going to make the pictures look beautiful, and then they're going to go later on to take care of the effects or go into sound, and that's kind of how you want your room to feel like it's just a place that you're creating at the same time, but you're also relaxing. And maybe not to the point where they're falling asleep on the couch, but it's just...
Mm-hmm. Because it does take a fair amount of concentration from all the parties, right? Because
right.
Especially on longer pieces, oftentimes and correct me if I'm wrong, you'll get, the finished cut, and it will have some basic level of color correction on it from the editor. And then you have to go in and correct things, that don't quite match.
Right.
And then the client comes in to basically approve that and then add value or give approvals on.
It depends. I mean, a lot of times, like getting back to look development, and let's pick out like a few of the most important shots and how you as a director or the DP want these shots to look. Let's work on the wide shot and set that look, and go to another shot and same thing, set the look. And then a lot of times I was just, okay, you've given me 5 or 6 important shots to start matching to. You guys go away for a while. Let me just do my thing and then come back, and then let's get back into more of the nitty gritty. Like, okay, on that shot, maybe we just need to illuminate this actor's face a little bit more. And then, and of course that might translate to X amount of scenes. So, again, it's just a little bit of that back and forth and it's not just long projects, of course. I mean, with a commercial, a lot of times it's like setting up 2 or 3 different looks for something. And because it's a shorter time frame, it allows me some freedom to, a lot of times it's like, yeah, this is how you're used to seeing it from the rough cut. And then, but here, let's take it, let's balance it a little cooler, or balance it warmer, but put a vignette, or just some simple stuff. But at the same time, it just allows them to, you're pulling them away from what they're used to seeing, just to give them some options that they might not have thought of.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, let me try to wrap this in a funny way. Skin tones are obviously important, matching
Right.
skin
I'll probably look at
tones.
that first more than anything else.
Yep,
Right.
because if you're featuring humans,
Right.
right, you have to make sure that it's an accurate representation and it matches across shots.
Exactly.
How do you do that with meat? And tell
yeah.
us why that's important in what you've been doing.
Well, meat, if it doesn't look right, looks dry, looks overcooked, that losing that freshness is probably akin to, like, it doesn't taste good. They don't take care of it's not high quality, and so there is a lot of care to making food. Meat, like roast beef, for instance, has a certain pinkness to it when it's freshly cut, and but that's different from how a brisket looks, and it's different from how a hamburger after it sears on the grill. All these different, it's just like skin tone. It's it's very unique.
And the meat thing is going to come way out of left field for a lot of people listening, but you've done a lot of color work for a very large national fast food place.
Right.
And your fingerprints are all over any of those type of commercials that we've all seen before. So you've done a lot of meat color correction.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And bun color correction and lettuce and all the things, the ingredients that come alongside the meat, and chicken and fish patties. It's not just one restaurant. Then I've worked on other restaurants that it's same but different. They prepare their food differently, so and you bring that certain uniqueness, and also that's the set design that is surrounding the food as well, that plays into that unique feel for that particular restaurant.
Do you still have fun doing those sorts of things?
Oh yeah. It's because they being the creatives that I work with are not just stuck on a certain look, that they are also pushing the way that these sandwiches look in different environments. It's not they're always pushing forward, and that excitement just translates to what you put on the screen or what you're seeing on the screen, and the fun that the different sandwiches that they're coming up with different ones all the time too. So
Yeah. You just need the sandwich commercial on the gas station screen.
Oh, surprisingly, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, soon. Quick Trip. If you're hiring, let them know.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Do you need to take vitamin D supplements?
I do take a vitamin D at night, so
I think everybody in Minnesota probably needs to. I think
that's probably.
I think most doctors would. Yeah. I asked in jest because yeah.
But, I think my doctor would be happy that I answered that correctly. So
all right, good job.
Thanks. I put I call it eye ginger. I think you just put a white screen on during a particularly long session to kind of flush your eyes out.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be there, or at least you should.
It's a bit like going into the casino for
Correct.
10, 12 hours
That's right.
and coming out and be like, what day is it? Yeah. I'm sure you're used to that. But when I've gone into those studios for a full day, you walk out, you feel like a zombie. You're like, where have I been for the last year?
Exactly.
Let's talk about kind of the career beginnings. How did you initially become interested in this line of field? It's not like, it's on the career checklist for kids growing up.
I've always said colorists aren't born, they're made, and I certainly fit into that category. I was 2 years into college thinking I was going into a medicine route. Parents were from the old country, thinking that you're going to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, very traditional professions. but those within those first 2 years, my disinterest in school was showing, and I needed time off and just realizing that this wasn't the right path. I took a year off, and I had one of my best friends growing up worked as a gopher at a post-production house in Chicago, and I asked them, did they need anybody during the school year? Met with the two owners that then became my biggest mentors. That's how I got into post-production to begin with. Now, of course, it's just a matter of what I want to do with that. And once I got my foot in the door and I learned how to edit on a flatbed, I learned how to work on editing videotape, at least when we did it back then. And then there was one machine that was a positive film to tape transfer machine. All it had was a Sony or a camera attached to a prism system that would just run the work picture or the film at 24 frames a second and record it to a 3/4 inch tape. And all it was like balancing out the camera so that the film looked correct. So if anything, that was maybe the beginnings of understanding color. I still didn't really know what a colorist was, but the exposure to different disciplines within a post-production facility eventually led me to meet other colorists. Then my company decided that they were going into online services, and I, after 7 years, then was named their colorist, and haven't looked back. But at the same time, I again had no idea that I would become a colorist. If you were going to ask that kid from a year out of college trying to figure out what to do. But going back to my mentors, it's just knowing that they saw something in me with regards to the ability to relate to my clients as we're working on something technical. So it's almost like your bedside manner.
I was going to say that, yeah. You haven't veered that far, maybe, yeah.
Maybe that was just, it was a different calling, but really within the same line. Yeah. So they saw that in me, probably more than I saw that in myself. And I think that they believed that I would learn the technical skills as I started to work on things a little bit more and more and getting more confident. And then all of a sudden, I really feel comfortable in this world, and I kept pursuing it. And now can't think of anything else I'd be doing because it's just something that I felt very natural doing.
Yeah. Was there one of those early jobs when it all kind of came together for you, or that you saw out in the wild and you're like, oh, this is great?
You remember when Michael Jordan left basketball and then he announced he was coming back?
Yep.
Well, there was a spot that I worked on that it was like he was running up this mountainside to a guru.
Michael Jordan. To find what you desire requires a great effort.
It was just announcing, it was just in time with him coming back.
I have weird vestigial memories of this, yeah.
You look thirsty. Gatorade.
So, but getting that, that film and getting my hands, getting a chance to work on that, just sort of like, wow, I can, work.
And this was in Chicago.
This is in Chicago, right?
To work on a spot with Michael Jordan. And
right.
It was
also, yeah, I guess it's 95. So it just, as they're getting ready to embark on their next three-peat, and it was exciting times, but there were so many spots to work on. That's, you just hone your craft that way. I do remember, and this is when I was really young and starting out as a colorist, but Caleb Deschanel came into my room, and I didn't know who he was, thankfully, because after I found out who he was, that
might have been a little intimidating.
Exactly.
Well, who is he for the?
Caleb Deschanel is the Oscar-winning director, Oscar-winning DP on The Natural. At least that as I knew him as that. And he was in town for a spec spot for an Oscar Mayer spot. So it was just one of those. I didn't know who he was, but at the same time, after I learned who he was, it just and of course the images were immaculate. And it just how things, when you put them up on on screen. You don't even feel like you need to do anything because it's already just it just needs to be just maybe a touch of contrast or something like
to justify
that.
your contribution. Yeah, like I'm gonna
Right.
move this slider a little bit. Yeah,
Right.
a lot of commercials will bring in big time directors or cinematographers like that one. Do you often find they're involved on the coloring process?
As much as they can be, a lot of times they won't be able to travel to Minnesota for the final session, but I'll share notes with them. They will, or of course, with our ability to stream the output of my room, maybe thank you COVID for that bit of a push in technology.
So you can stream something and like kind of Zoom with them simultaneously, so they can almost watch real time what
they
you're
can
doing.
watch what I'm doing real time. Exactly. That is still kind of rare, only because at least in the commercial world, it's sort of like it's the agency that wants to drive the ship for the most part. Of course, they will listen to their director and DP just for their suggestions, but at the end of the day, it's just like they're the ones signing off on the project, as opposed to maybe a long form piece, a short film that I'll have the director and DP there, hopefully in person, or at least being able to watch the output. A lot of times I've had to just post the use frame IO and post, but at least I can get feedback that way, and and you can get detailed. A lot of it is so helpful.
Yeah.
But we know that in person, people sharing the same screen, being able to see at the same time, and just the subtle changes that you're doing, which can't be picked up on a posting.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel it. Like even when watching like a film, there's a communal response. You can probably sense that with somebody that's sitting over by
you can sense their excitement that you're pushing something in the right direction, or just read their nonverbal communication that okay, that they didn't like that, but that there's so many subtle clues that we get from being in person that it's so hard you can't see that on a Zoom call.
Yeah. The base level, what you need out of that when you're in the room with somebody who's like, hey, what about this or what about that?
Exactly, right.
And you can find that little magic.
Exactly. And I haven't had too many in-person sessions during COVID times. It sucks, of course. It's just but we're making do. But at the same time, when people are in the room and I missed this. It's like, I know, but come on in when you can. It's almost like having them relearn that this communal process is the way it has always been and the way it should be done. But
yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about the technological advances, including the ability to do remote. Has there been any other kind of like really crazy, mind-blowing thing in the last handful of years that you're like, oh, this is going to change the paradigm?
Well, I was talking with regards to we're getting a new release on our software that is really starting to push the look development envelope a lot further. It's almost like thinking of film, the look of film is something that we have desired forever. I mean, like we know when that looks video, it's like, nah. Something has that filmic look, that description. It's like, oh, very desirable. And the way that we can push that, we always want to create new, exciting looks. And that can apply to commercials, but certainly for a narrative piece that on a certain shots that just something that you can try that you want it to help the story again, but it's just something unique about it that really fits the story, and that's exciting. So,
and the film side of things, the average person probably couldn't identify what is good about
they don't
that,
know what
but you can
seeing.
feel it.
Exactly.
Like is there a way to explain what that film look kind of is for people?
It's slightly diffused, and the blacks aren't necessarily. We can see into the shadows now with these newer cameras a lot, but a lot of times we don't want to see all that extra detail. We want to soften that to the point where we feel it. We know that there is something there.
There's depth there.
There's depth there, but we don't need to see into
it's a
that.
distraction. Yeah.
Exactly. The highlights, of course, that they're very. Instead of 100% video highlights, they could be 80% highlights, and they're still strong. They feel that they fit, and it might be, and it's still the brightest thing in the shot, but it's not that super hot very very digital look like that, and diffusion techniques, halation, like where the layers that bleed and create like a halation is the reddish glow around, and that's from film. It's just like a film processing, and being able to bring those kind of tools or looks into our digital world are they're always sought after, and because we don't want it to be super clean. I mean, there might be something that needs that clean look, but more often than not, we want that film look to be what we're used to seeing in the cinema, what we're used to seeing at.
Do you think that's like a taste thing? Like if the video look were invented first and then film came later, do you think we'd be trying to emulate video on film? Or do you think it's superior for some of the aforementioned reasons?
There are smarter people than me that have researched why the film look is superior. It's an emotional response. That the photography is an abstraction from reality, and we increase the immersion through that abstraction from reality. If that makes sense, it's just that's what the film look brings. It's not like a video look. It's
not hyper real,
immediate, and so that's what it always feels like to us. It's not hyper real, right? Whereas film is that abstraction, and it feels, and the greater that abstraction is, the more that the viewer gets immersed. So.
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way, but it makes complete sense, because the brain's always scanning its environment for threats or opportunities, and if something is too hyper real on the screen, maybe it's like, oh, what's reality? I'm bouncing between that reality and this reality, where film just adds that layer of abstraction like you're talking about that makes us feel comfortable and gives us the opportunity just to fall into the frame, and absorb it versus having to contextualize it or,
Well, like we can point to like the luminance of a red was too bright. It looks wrong to us, but it's more the instinctive response that's saying that just there's something wrong. I am now removed from this, what I'm supposed to be watching.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's the uncanny valley, right? And other mediums too. It's like when you see like a CG character and they're like, they're close, but there's something off and I don't like it.
Right.
Like there's this interior vestigial thing where like, it grosses me out. I get the ick because they're human, not human.
Exactly.
And sometimes you can use that to your advantage. Though.
Right. I mean, there is a time where that becomes the advantage, but this is an evolutionary kind of thing about and how color actually plays into that, or a look. It's just interesting that that's why we fall into this enjoyment of film, that look. We want to be removed for that moment in time, or at least while we're there sitting at the theater, being a part of this world that was created for us.
Yeah, color theory is like a fascinating science to me, and I barely understand it, and I'd assume you probably understand it innately, then you kind of have to forget about it.
Yeah, I think there's things that you just pick up along the way. A lot of times I know what to do on a shot more so than exactly why I'm doing it. It's just sort of like there's the feel that you get, like something's not matching here. I know why, or I mean, I know that if I do this, I get closer already. And a lot of that's probably more experience than anything else, that you just know that I've worked on shots similar to this before, or that I've run into these situations like this before, and you bring that each time to, and I still treat each project with a certain uniqueness. There's never this formula that you want to try and bring to something. Maybe if it was an episodic show that, the look is kind of set, and I don't want to say that in a derogatory sort of way. It's just that,
it has to be consistent. Yeah.
It has to be consistent. You have 8 hours to grade a 50-minute show. You want something consistent, and you be able to, if you set up looks from that setup from before, it'll definitely great to be able to call those up again and be really, really close, and it just minor things. So there is that idea that I do bring in, like, I've seen a similar shot from another setup, I will use that setup, but I was still. You could frame out a mistake, for instance, and maybe I won't even know that that would be part of. So sometimes that mistake is already eliminated. But in terms of the visual aspect of a mistake, it's having the tools to be able to, whether you mask it out a little bit more, or I've had to change colors on. Oh, that sweater color is not in our catalog. We have to, so no problem with, we have to go after it. I mean, there's some times where it goes beyond color grading, that you have to do probably more of a paint fix, or where it goes into flame or into the finishing sort of visual effects kind of work.
Flame is software.
Flame software, yep. Right. Very specific to that machine, but visual effects work that is beyond my scope. But more often than not, we try to eliminate, or at least solve these problems in color. I mean, and I think any good colorist will enjoy the problem-solving aspect of that job, of our job, equally as much as creating some beautiful looks.
Well, I think a lot of people need to know that film production is not shot sequentially. So you're shooting different things on different days.
Right.
And you could have different crew members on set doing different things. The weather can change.
Right.
And sometimes you have to help fix that. Like sometimes an actor's makeup might be different from day to day.
Right.
And it's not supposed to be. And maybe you can help that a little bit, or at least, not put attention on it. Right.
Exactly. De-emphasize. Because I always talk about, like, for the idea of color grading something is directing the viewer's eye for that, especially with a commercial. You only have 30 seconds or 15 seconds nowadays to tell this story. You need the viewer's eye to go to what they need to be seeing. And a lot of, whether that's quickly vignetting something, a C-stand got put in something, and I had to go and just grab the silver and try to just knock that down. And more often than not, that,
just becomes
you feel it's like
in the
you
background.
saved the day, but it's sort of like, it's just, it's another thing in a day's work. And, I feel obviously very happy that they walk away happy knowing that we solved that problem for them. And you're talking about non-sequential shooting. I mean, clouds rolling in from one day that weren't there the next day, or that's not a mistake. It's just uncontrollable factors that are part of any shoot. We all, as colorists, are helping to, keep the story line from a visual standpoint playing where the viewer is not distracted.
Yeah, I'm sure you've witnessed this, but I've noticed, like, bringing projects to color grading, you'll edit the thing, right? So, and spend countless hours editing this project, and you bring it to a different location and you look at it and you're like, oh, I never noticed that one thing before.
Right.
And sometimes it's like, oops, like we forgot that was there.
Right.
I'm guessing that happens often with your clients.
All of a sudden, they've been used to seeing the dailies grade on something, and you've started to enhance it, and it's like, oh, I never saw that movement before. It can get drastic to the point, it's like, we have to find a different take. And you're in the middle of your final and hoping that you find something that, or then talking with the editor, finding some creative fix for or something that it's definitely interesting if they discover something that when you do something with a final color grade, and it wasn't apparent to them before.
I think it's there's a lesson in there for all creatives or people doing any creative work, that context switching is really important and good, even on the writing stage of things. Anybody that's written anything, if you read it out loud, you notice some imperfections, or maybe the flow is a little off, and so finding those ways to do that ahead of time is probably wise.
Right. I'm just trying to think of I'm going to point to your to BitCon. I remember where Noah and Ella were outside the house, and there was a shot. Ella's inside the car and Noah's outside the car, and cameras going up and down. And I remember having to keyframe, and it was a pretty long sequence. I think probably at least a 2-minute sequence and I remember just, having the grade inside for Ella having to be a certain way. But of course you can't like just overall switch the shot to a different grade for Noah. You had to be very specific, but that's not a mistake. It's just like, that's the conditions that were part of that shot for the day. So
I can tell you we're not thinking of color correction when we're shooting something like that. Right. We're trying to make a cool scene.
Right.
And then, you're at the end of the process. So you have to deal with some of those things that are like, oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're lit differently. So, of course, exposure's going to be different. And,
And I always find joy in that problem solving to make it, I want it to feel seamless. I'll work very hard to make sure that that vision is realized. There's so many times that you do shoot something in the middle that will be repurposed. It's day for night all of a sudden in the cut or in the sequence. So, but you shot at 12 noon. But that's the fun challenge. Let's make this. How are we going to make this feel seamless from a shot that came, they're transitioning from night to like an early dawn shot, and how do we get there? And color grading it in the way that it like that feels pretty seamless. Then you feel really, really happy that you accomplished that.
Yeah, well, you're one of the best at it, and I think your bedside manner is really good in that front, because sometimes we come in with these visions and the way you can move the filmmaker around a little bit to get what they want and what's also accomplishable is a magic trick.
Keeping everybody happy in the room that you need to is always it's a funny joke of being a psychotherapist in the room.
Yeah.
I need to always like, when are you done with the shot? When do you know it's a great grade, or it's no different than walking away? It's like, have I done everything I could to make this the best shot possible on set, or have I written it in a way that is will sound where I want that to? And I think that's no different for what we do as colorists. But at the same time, it's also knowing, okay, we've reached a really, really good point, and I think everybody is going to be happy with what we're presenting on screen.
Yeah, I mean, because you could work infinite hours.
Right. Color is exactly.
Yeah, at a certain point, you have to be like, it's good enough.
Exactly.
And there's a trade-off, because people have a limited amount of time in your room. They book you, usually by the day, right?
Well, it could be it depends.
But there's a finite time. There's no
unlimited.
Right.
The clock is
so it's like we
running.
could work on this shot for the next 12 hours, but that means we can't do the next 5 the same way.
Correct.
Like, there's a balance there on what you choose to fight your battles on.
Right. You want to dedicate and that balance, that time correctly. Of course, you're trying not to, paint the first shot perfectly, but then, like you said, you're just not having the extra time to give the same kind of treatment to the shots that also need it. You're not serving the project at all. Then it's great that you made one scene look great, but that's not
doesn't
going
matter
to carry.
If all the rest look
that's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So a big part of your job is probably just managing expectations and making sure that people know where the goal line is.
Right.
Be like, okay, yeah, we can do this, but there's a trade-off.
Right. And I think my preparation ahead of time, looking at the film, at the images before people walk in the room, just to know what those limitations are, by just playing with the balance, playing with the contrast, trying to just push and pull, stretch. Just it's all part of the learning process for me on how it was shot. I wasn't on set, so it's like I need to figure out what those clues are that I have when I'm just given the shot in front of me. Now, if I work with people that were on set and they're translating a lot of the questions I might have, in the end, I'm translating an idea onto screen. And I have my experience level to like help interpret all the term, what people are asking, putting it into the all together, and then producing it on the screen.
And you get the luxury of having aesthetic distance too, whereas like the filmmakers, the agency, or whomever was working on the project on the day, they're like, okay, the actor was 4 hours late, the police were there earlier,
Right.
thunderstorm destroyed one of our lights the night before,
Right.
So they're bringing all this baggage to it, and they're fighting for something that maybe doesn't quite exist anymore. But you get to look at it with these virgin eyes and be
Right.
like, okay, how do we make this into the best thing possible now?
Exactly. Being that objective third party, people are really wanting to have something that they need to see, but at least having just giving them the just saying that it's not, we can go there, but it's not really going to fit, especially when I cut to, when I start working on these shots. And when they hear that, at least, you're giving them concrete reasoning why it might not work.
Yeah.
It's funny to say no. You still have that in the back of your mind. Let's just try it a little bit. It's like, we'll give it a couple seconds, a minute or so to try it. And maybe, it's like, okay, a lot of times that's more the tweaking stage more than anything else. But I'm a pleaser in a lot of ways, to try and just, you want everybody to walk out of the room happy. But
well, you're our last hope. In restaurant terms, you're kind of the bridge between back of the house and front of the house. You're dealing with both of them,
right?
Right.
And
yeah. And people are gonna ultimately, nobody's gonna watch what the gaffer is doing. Obviously the product of the work, but they're not going to be able to identify what that
right.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Your work, people get to identify pretty quickly, or hopefully not.
Right. At the same time, right? You don't want them to notice what there might be the idea that I certainly watch things, like if I notice it, and maybe I'm, of course, have my more discerning eye on something, and somebody will tell me, it's like, oh, I never noticed that. It's like, okay, that's good. But, you're always going to be your toughest critic.
Yeah.
But
if I watch something and I notice the filmmaking, usually there's something wrong that pulled me out.
Right.
I want to watch something, and 90 minutes later on the feature side, I'm like, oh, what just happened there?
Mm-hmm.
I just fell into that,
right.
And that's our job.
Yep. Exactly. And a subset of that is color. It's just you don't want to notice bad color, or color that just isn't matched to what the scene needs for that moment.
And there's cliches within color too, and sometimes cliches are there for a good reason. Like there's that whole meme with Mexico needs to be that dusty
traffic yellow, of course. Right.
Because it's a shorthand.
Exactly.
Right or wrong, it's a cliche that's a shorthand that helps us understand quickly, maybe instantly, a little more information about something.
Right.
I don't know how you navigate that.
Well, I had productions that have come from Mexico City, and they have that kind of brownish tone to them. And so it's like, in some ways, it's not necessarily just a cliche. It's something like environmentally.
I think there's always truths in cliche,
yeah, right.
They come from somewhere. It's just when they probably get overused.
Well,
a little
right.
bit.
That was pretty heavy-handed. I always point to traffic as that case where each distinct story had a specific color palette.
Yeah.
It was, I don't want to say heavy-handed, but it was pretty distinct.
Yeah. I consider you an artist. Like, how does your personal art come in? Because you're at service of the project, right? So are you
right.
just leveraging your art as your, experience, basically? Like, I'm just going to make this as good as it can be for the project itself? Or do you find yourself being like, I think I can push it a little bit further here, obviously in service of the filmmakers and the project?
Maybe that falls into, like, the commerce part of my job. It's food needs to look delicious. That, it's thinking about what needs to be done first. Now, a narrative story, there's more freedom with that. So then, my artistic, or at least my sense of style, can be allowed to play and be a part of that. A lot of times, like when I work on a longer piece, that the hourly aspect is removed. It's more just whether it's a day or a project kind of so, I then can I feel relaxed that I can try different things, present them to DP and director, and what do you think? It's just like, I'm having fun with this. Is it going to fit the story? And like, that's always fun, and it feels like, yeah, you're letting your proverbial blinders off to be able to play around. Music videos, of course, that also fall into. I mean, there's so many. There's probably it's that perfect length of like trying to push something, and more often being more artistic as opposed to trying to serve the commercial aspect of the. Yeah, you want there's this group selling the song, but more often than not, it's just making it something look aesthetically cool.
Yeah.
And it could, and a lot of times there's no rules with that, so that's always fun.
Yeah, and the commercial side, there's 14 layers of authority typically.
Right.
Yeah.
You and that was even before it got to you.
Right.
You have, you still have. I might have the art director, and then the creative director will need to approve that, or and then maybe the client will have to see final color. You have to be mindful of what the chain of command might be for that particular project.
Yeah.
But of course, I always enjoy this when I can not have to, or when I get that chance to be able to just play with things and straddle both sides of that line, to be able to. I think that's important, that people know that when they come to me, that I understand their project and what it needs for this moment, but when they also need a time to, like, we don't, not that they don't know what it, but like, show us some options. That's always that's a great session too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not pushing yourself, right, how can you bring new ideas?
Exactly. Right.
And that's kind of, you're leaving money on the table if you can't do that.
Right. And the tools will allow you to, if they're pushing the tools in a way that allows you to, like, I've never, turned this knob before, or it wasn't available before. What does it do now? It's like, and, put that save that in the gallery there. And I don't need it right now, but obviously I'm going to use it at some point. And, there's so many opportunities to do that in color that you feel excited when you're able to bring that out. And you're even more excited when it's like, wow, I never saw that before. Just like, I never thought about that before. Always exciting.
Yeah. They say you shouldn't go grocery shopping on an empty stomach.
Right.
Do you feel like when you're coloring any of those food spots, if you're hungry?
Oh, it's funny because those restaurants aren't nearby right away to to act upon that impulse. I have probably gone there later.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, advertising works.
It does work. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny. Yeah. You're not inhuman. It will affect you on some level.
I get hungry eventually. Right.
Well, they say in marketing, like, you need to be exposed to a marketing message like 7 times.
Oh,
in order to feel it. Like, you're getting that on one spot, like,
visually,
all day,
exactly.
7,000 times probably.
Within a 4-hour, for a session for 4 hours, I have played the spot continually over, at least 25 times during that, just to see how all the shots flow. But of course, then it's like that's sinking in the whole time.
Yeah. Or maybe the opposite happens sometimes. You're
right.
Like, I can't look at a sandwich right now. I need to go
No,
eat
I can't
salad.
say that. No.
Job security. Good play. Of all the projects you've worked on, is there any one that really stands out as being the most memorable, or the one thing that you're most proud of?
I knew you were going to ask me this. It's just,
they're all your children. You love them all.
Well,
equally.
exactly. Next year, we're going to be entering our 10th year working on Arby's, and the fact that even as the creatives I've worked with, there have been a lot of great people I've worked with on the agency side that they've moved on to other projects, but the fact that they are still making these fun spots to work on that says a lot. I mean, in 10 years on something, for that long is
that's unprecedented.
It's something that we're proud of. I mean, all of us involved, not only myself at Nice Shoes, but my friends at Volt Studios who do the finishing, and Sister Boss who does all the audio. It's like it's a great team effort through all of this for these 10 years. I had a little part in Hoop Dreams. I worked on a few shots. Now it's been remastered, so I don't know if my
Stuck around.
if I'm part of that technically anymore. But I know that I worked on the original. Being from Chicago, of course, that's it. I even knew some of the people in the film itself, just growing up playing sports with them. But when you see something that big, or at least that acclaimed, and you see your name at least even way at the end of the credits, it was still a proud moment to be a part of.
Yeah, that's a legacy. I mean, that's a really important project.
Yeah, right. And now knowing that it's in the Library of Congress, then I can say that that's something that I have worked on that even got to that point. So
yeah, that's cool. Let's come back to the Arby thing a little bit.
Oh, sure. So like we've been able to keep it in house for the most part.
And really, most of them are those medium close shots of
the food
the
shots,
food,
right.
And maybe some hands coming in.
Exactly. We're moving away from that though. That's the thing. It's like now
breaking news.
The new spots that are starting to air. That it's not even just it's the environments that that we're used to seeing, the white background or the white test kitchen. Now we're seeing like a real kitchen and more light flares playing, and this instead of being very, I'd say stark white, but just a much cleaner look.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that they're playing with the environment around that. It brings new challenges. Mm-hmm. So it's not just you can say, oh, I just need to make the stainless steel silver, and it's like it's more than that. It's always more than that in the sense of when you're having the meat and selling a particular sandwich. Through COVID, they were shooting more in town here, which was great. But sometimes, they'll still go out for some outdoor shoots that might not, be in different places. But I want to say that a shout out to the local people in town here that when they were handed the baton to shoot some of this stuff, that they really took off and ran with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll get into the local stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know whenever I see an Arby's commercial, I always have a warm, fuzzy feeling because I know you worked on it.
I asked them if they're going to bring back potato cakes, though, and they said maybe in the summer. So, but it's a limited run.
They're doing burgers now.
They are, exactly.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but it looks good.
They had the tie-in with the Good Burger 2, and it was and those were fun. Those spots ran on a screen in Times Square. So
oh, nice.
Like, we're delivering it on this size screen. Those deliverables, I deliver the full frame, full res, and let the powers that be in finishing figure out how to make it fit on that screen.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the title for your biography will be From Gas Stations to the Oscars to Times Square. The Oscar Oboza story.
I already have, my name is already at least on a trophy, so it's just like.
Yeah. That's awesome. Tell me a bit about working at Nice Shoes. And what is Nice Shoes? Maybe give a little context.
Nice Shoes is it's a New York-based company that, and I run the satellite office here in Minneapolis. They have been around for over 25 years now. We opened up the Minneapolis branch in 2014. It's, for me, have been just a great place to be a part of. I've been, for the most part, on my own as a colorist for most of my career. I mean, a couple of times I've worked with at houses that had other colorists, but this is for me a sustained almost 10-year relationship with Nice Shoes. And even though that they're in New York and I'm here, it's great to be a part of a bigger presence, that in the sense that I not only that I work with other colorists that and they work on so many other things that compared to like they have fashion, they have automotive, just other categories that I just don't see here as much and to be able to ask them or talk to them, just talk shop. I mean, it's we know as creatives that we need, again, coming back to community, it's how important we share ideas and bounce ideas off of one another. Having that has been so important. And even though also that as we got into COVID, having their backbone in terms of the technologies that I needed to be able to continue working, that because people weren't coming into rooms.
That would have been a heavy lift for you,
right?
Had you been solo, yeah.
But having the quickly being able to start streaming and finding those solutions that allowed me to keep. Not to say that we wouldn't have figured it out if you're on your own, but it's certainly when you're at a bigger shop that there are a lot of people doing some R&D that you can implement things a lot quicker.
Yeah. I know you're a humble guy, so we'll forgive that. But in the color world, like who's coloring it matters quite a bit. Would Nice Shoes be in Minneapolis if you weren't here?
No, they'd be here remotely, perhaps, but the artists would only be in New York. So it was important to Nice Shoes that, or at least they saw the benefit that having boots on the ground here, and it's not because I can bring in other projects that they may not have been able to get if they were just a remote service because of my relationships here in town.
That's cool. Speaking of being in town, can you talk a little bit about like the local industry as a whole, like any of the pros and cons and why you like it here? If you like it here?
I've tried to move away twice already, and the tether has pulled me back. So obviously I love it. I love it here. It's a great community. I don't want to say take it for granted that but creating all these relationships over the years, I continue to value them so much. I just miss getting to see people on a regular basis, and hopefully that will continue to change and start to see more people face to face. But again, going back to when I went on set and the saying hi to the director, Colin, or saying hi to Steve with the DP, and I was at K2 knowing Kristen, that all these people they're all part of this beautiful small community that we have here. And it might be lean, but it continues to run strong. And I can't be more proud that I'm here, and how busy we stayed during COVID. Sure, those first 3 months we're like, oh, I don't know, nobody's going to shoot ever again, and we don't know what we're going to do. But that, we started to move forward, and felt like we have great support, from the agencies in town. I did miss I came here in '99, so that hot bed of activity in the early '90s, or late '80s, early '90s. I certainly hear about the heyday of production in town.
Yep.
But not to say that people have stopped shooting, thankfully, but maybe that resurgence can come back, and I'd love to be a part of that as well. But I've always loved, very proud to be here working in this community.
Yeah, I think a lot of what gets undersold too is how much ad work is in this town.
Right.
You know,
Right.
at least in terms of the upper Midwest. I mean, Chicago's doing pretty dang well, right?
They had their own thing going, but and that was the thing. It's just I worked in Chicago for many years, and admittedly didn't know too much about Minneapolis until a Miller Lite campaign, the Dick campaign. But there's one of those like, oh, you know, it's not just Purple Rain up here. There's certainly things going on, and even I didn't know how great the music scene was until I came here, and I knew about some of the music that was up here. And so it's once I became part of the community, and I always also felt like I was accepted right away. Like I always have been always a part of this, and even though I wasn't, and I obviously value the people that have brought me on, and you know, just allowed me to be a part of all of this. You can't beat it.
Speaking of local people or bands or restaurants, any local shout outs you feel like people aren't getting enough attention or you want to let people know about?
First, give a shout out to co-directors Don Mickelson and Carrie Pickett. They worked on a documentary film here called Finding Her Beat. They were just nominated or shortlisted for the documentary feature category.
Incredible.
So hoping the best. Again, it's the fact that it was something locally made and during COVID, or at least post-production was during COVID. Can't thank them enough, but also at the same time, you know, just wishing them the best. So.
And they've been at it a long time too, so the perseverance
Right.
to keep pushing and creating.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's incredible.
A shout out to kind of the entire Arby's world that I've been part of, and mainly it's the Arby's, the creatives at Fallon and Volt Studios, who does the finishing, and Sister Boss, who does the audio. We're all part of this team that has
Sounds like a family almost.
it is, yeah. I consider it a family, and it's a great family to be a part of. And lastly, another creative soul who's an important part of my life is my amazing wife. Her and her partner started a architectural firm 5 years ago, and they're just doing amazing work as well. And couldn't be happier for her. A lot of us bowl in Ad League, and league is starting up pretty soon. And I tend to a great place I go to is Town Hall Lanes. And just it's a great place to eat, but it also, you know, you can start practicing. We're getting close to this beginning of Ad League, so
I know.
we want to see some. I'll see you out there.
You will. Yeah, I'm pretty mediocre. You're
No.
you're one of the high average guys out there.
It's all because I've probably been bowling in Ad League for a long time, and I never thought I didn't start bowling until I moved here. So
Yeah, no, that's a great shout out. It's a great place to network and bowl and
exactly.
cold beer, good food.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
and they have music like most nights too.
Not live music, but they other venues like, of course, where we bowl. I can't
Memory lanes.
sorry.
Yep.
Fun live music at Memory Lanes as well. I shouldn't forget that place, of course, because you know they've been gracious to host Ad League for the past, I think, almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great place to go.
I think registration is probably closed for this year, but next year they'll probably take some new teams on.
We are. I think that Jordan, the current commissioner, he's doing a great job. He's trying. I don't know if we found 36 teams yet.
Okay.
But yeah, we would revert back to the 30-team format, and
So might be time.
there might be time. Exactly. Yeah, it's but if you think you want to have a team out there, you know, there might be a chance. So, and again, it's a great place for Ad League. It's a great place to meet and network with industry folks that, and it's across different industries, advertising, production, post-production. We're all there, obviously, to enjoy bowling, but it's just like, you know, you might bowl against an agency one night, get to know them a little bit, and then next night you might be bowling with some freelance production people.
And you're given handicaps too, so you don't have to be a good
Right,
bowler.
you don't have to be a great bowler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just have to have fun. I think that's the most important prerequisite.
Yeah, and it's winter in Minnesota, so you got to find things to do.
Exactly. What else are you gonna do on a Monday night? I just like it's perfect. But everybody starts to disappear after April. We know that because it starts to get warm here, and we get it. But it's those 3 months that it's so cold here. Do we ever get used to it? I don't know.
Tolerate it, maybe. Yeah. Any tools or things in your everyday life that you find make your job or your life easier? Whether that's software or a new notebook or anything cool that.
Well, I don't actually point clients to this site enough, but I use it. It's called film-grab.com.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's a great resource in terms of just catching up on various looks on feature films.
Like you can go get stills.
Exactly. And
frame
use them as
grabs from,
reference. Yeah. That's huge when you're just trying to have an idea of how something should look. And of course, you have to interpret it, but it doesn't give you all the information off it. But it's a visual reference that I can quickly use to start the conversation. I mean, and like I said, I don't really point to clients to it enough, but I use it as to help me inform me as to set some looks for a project before they come into the room.
Yeah, I know a lot of people use it for pitch decks or lookbooks too.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Before they shoot anything, to pull together, like to communicate to the DP, like, hey, this is what we want it to look like.
Right.
So it's fun to see that happening on the back end too. Last question or two. If anybody's looking to kind of break in to being a colorist,
mm-hmm.
any words of wisdom?
Now, knowing that the point of entry is so much easier to work on color grading, and not to necessarily be a colorist, but I mean, you can buy Resolve Studio for less than $400. Now, that's just the program. If you want to start buying some of the gear around it, of course, there's some more costs associated. But it's a pricey endeavor to get into. Now, the main thing, though, is if you do want to start color grading, is just looking at images and talk about like just finding reference frames and trying to make something look like that. That's not only practice, but it's informing you what the tools can do and how to color and how to describe. If you're trying to create a look, what does it take to get there? But there are also film festivals like Z-Fest and the 48-hour film festival that people are maybe looking. They might not know they want to color grade it, but if you are willing to put yourself into the ring, tell them, those filmmakers, that you'd be happy to work on it. That's also a great entry. We don't quite have the big post houses here anymore that one can apprentice at. I mean, I think I feel lucky that I have an assistant that is actually really now working her way to become, she's a junior colorist at this point. So she's going to continue. And she got in because just same thing. She learned how to use Resolve, and she later went to film school. But it was exposure to tools that, for me, when I was coming up, it was more an apprentice. Like, you had to find a place that could buy $1 million telecine, that could then buy a $500,000 color corrector, and all that's now contained in a $400 piece of software. So it's certainly not, you're not limited by that entry point anymore. So it's just a matter of, and networking, understanding that you can't just do it yourself and try and put it out there. I think we always talk about, you're not a colorist until somebody hires you and to be a colorist. And so you can be a color grader, or you can understand the color grading tools. But if you really want to become a colorist, making those connections, making with other filmmakers, and maybe you have friends that are that want to make films, and you can be that person that hey, I'll color grade this. Just that's how you just hone your chops.
From my perspective, there are a handful of projects that need to go to a colorist, and those are ones that need to maintain consistency throughout like a campaign or 10 years of campaigns, right?
Right.
Or something that's going to be distributed widely or seen in different formats, or, you go to broadcast and you have certain specs that you have to meet.
Right.
So it's not a one size fits all. Not everybody has to go that
Exactly.
route.
Right. I think just knowing that you have access to these color grading tools, even Premiere has color grading tools. A lot of these nonlinear editing systems have color grading tools, and it's just a matter of just keep at it, keep trying different things. I like to think that I get a lot of emails just from people, from not necessarily career advice, but more just like advice in terms of like where they want to like take something for a specific job. It's just like, and nothing. It's always fun to talk shop.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just whether, it's making, I try to make myself accessible in that regards.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I know that people, it's much more nowadays, people talking about color. It certainly wasn't there when I was coming up. It's just because not too many people had access to those tools. Now that the access is there, we're going to see a lot more.
Democratize it,
yeah,
more of a meritocracy
exactly.
now.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where do you think AI is going to impact your field?
Well, as I'm looking at the new software upgrades, they talk more about the subset of machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't speak to AI quite yet in terms of, but certainly with ML being probably more applicable to what I'm doing right now. Only it can embrace it. I mean,
it's a tool that
will help my job become more efficient. Whether it's face tracking, for instance, and it's that face. We've done treatment on that shot, and then you can take that same grade and quickly apply it, as opposed to having to then retrack each and every shot that's part of that sequence. I mean, that's
intensive.
That's intensive, but but it needs to be done, right? I mean, it's like this is going to help the story. We need to have her or his face illuminated a little bit more compared to everybody else, and you're going to do that because that's what the story needs. But if your tools help you allow to do it much quicker, why?
You can focus more on the art, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only embrace it. And so, yeah, machine learning being probably more prevalent at first, and it's just wait and understand the tools a little bit more as they, as smart people bring them aboard.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It will, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice Shoes, earlier this year, we came out with a white paper talking about the power of color and how important, not necessarily just color grading, but what color and the importance of what color means to us as a viewer and in our environment and our world. And I think it was a nice piece to bringing in not only fellow colorists, but also industry professionals that in different industries that could bring in their opinions and even their knowledge, more so than their opinions about color.
Mm-hmm.
And just
so we take it for granted, right? Because
it's just there, right?
But it has so much power,
right?
Yeah. Huh? Well, where can we go find that?
It's on our website.
Okay.
Yeah, niceshoes.com.
Yeah.
And funny thing about color, like, and I'll probably go off track, but did you ever read that the word blue is not mentioned in the Odyssey?
No, I have not.
Yes, the Greeks did not have a description for blue, and it's not. They have other words to describe the sea and the sky, but not the actual word blue in the
Fascinating.
Odyssey.
So if we don't have the language for it, does it truly exist?
You're right.
Yeah. Well, it just, I mean, all of this, a lot of this comes back to the fact that we're just all like, evolved animals, right? And
Right.
there are certain things that just have been true for the last, 100,000 years of our development, right? That will remain true for a long time.
Right.
We're kind of simple in that way.
We need to, at least there's those of us, challenging those norms, or at least pushing. Not necessarily. And long as there's always people, testing and proving it right or wrong, and it allows us to keep moving forward. So,
well, it would be boring without that. Yeah.
Right.
It'd be boring without the work you do day in, day out. So thank you. Like I said,
I appreciate
you're one of the
this.
best, and yeah,
Thank you.
I loved working with you previously, and hopefully
We had a blast, and look forward to another film down the road, and bringing on just that aspect of color being part of the storytelling. So
yeah, well, we'll see you at the bowling alley in a month.
thanks. I look forward to it.
All right, thanks.
All right.